Welcome, everyone. We will get going in just a moment. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have a really interesting conversation about EV charging. My name is Sydney Tanaka, and I lead strategic partnerships here at BlocPower. And I'm so pleased to have two of my favorite colleagues here for this conversation. We have Hanan Levin, who is the head of finance at BlocPower, and Ariel Fan, who's the CEO and founder of GreenWealth. So I'll let them both give a brief introduction, and then we'll get into equitable EV charging. Ariel, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariel Fan. I'm founder CEO of GreenWealth Energy. We're a developer, owner, and operator of light duty EV charging based out of LA. And we're very excited for the webinar here today. I think this is the first time publicly that, or maybe second, that we've spoken to an audience about the really incredible partnership GreenWealth and BlocPower have built. In short, which we'll cover more in the presentation, with BlocPower providing project finance and GreenWealth providing project development experience, we're building out a national rollout of finance, no upfront cost EV charging stations tailored at cities and Justice 40 community impacts. So very excited to share all that with y'all today. And I'll pass it to Hanan.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. Thanks, Cindy. I'm Hanan. I'm the head of finance here at BlocPower. Like both Sydney and Ariel mentioned, working to really implement capital and deploy it in the communities that need it the most in order to continue the transition into electrification, decarbonization, implementing financial mechanisms to really leverage the incentives in the market, leverage the opportunities in the market that are there, but really in bringing in significant Wall Street capital, the ability to look at deals from a different perspective than your traditional underwriting, and that's what we've done with here with GreenWealth is looking and making sure that the decarbonization of the environment, the EV charging aspects don't skip the communities that are usually left behind on these financing aspects. So excited to talk a little bit more about that.
Great. Hanan, if I could add one more point, I think it is amazing that we're all together today for this particular topic of no upfront cost charging stations aimed at cities and city programs. Because as of this morning, 300 climate mayors all over the US have pledged to make their fleets 50% EV and to develop over 500% increase of EV charging stations in their cities by 2030. So that is very, very fast, especially when you consider that charging projects from development to installation can take up to 2 to 3 years, or 3 to 4 years when you consider a larger program. So this is what we're discussing today, is introducing our companies and also between Sydney, Hanan, and I, a united team in which we are working already with a bunch of cities all over the country to develop equity programs in multifamily, public charging, fleets, and others. And through grants, tax credits, and private finance, make it no upfront cost to save taxpayers funding and overcome the financial hurdles of the charging infrastructure. So yeah, and I'm very excited. We'll pass back to Sydney.
Thank you, Ariel. What a great day for this. We planned it perfectly.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get into a little bit about BlocPower, a little bit about GreenWealth, and then we'll get into some discussion. Hanan, you want to kick us off with the slides?
Yeah, so BlocPower is basically a technology company that was started to focus on making buildings better, reducing emission in every aspect that we can through electrification of the building, starting at the lights, LED lights, heat pumps, solar, battery, and of course EV. We're really excited about focusing on our EV push with GreenWealth, but BlocPower has been working with the low and middle income communities to uh, make sure that the impact is felt by everybody and incentives are managed and are deployed through financial factors, through our workforce development abilities as well, and through our work with the governments directly. So we work with governments, utilities, building owners, and implement workforce all in the different verticals in order to make sure that the ecosystem of electrification is really filled out, and that way we can implement it across the market. Um, we're going nationwide. We're currently in 40 markets. Been around for 10 years. I've over 1,100 buildings impacted. We've done over 1,200 measures and a major workforce program in New York. Also growing to Denver, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia. Really, like I said, making sure that we work in every aspect of the ecosystem directly with cities, utilities, building owners, the finance, the capital markets, and the workers that are actually implementing these electrification measures.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think we can go through this one. Yep, perfect. Let's talk about our partnership. Ariel, go for it.
Great. So this is a GreenWealth overview slide, and we centered around our program with BlocPower. So what do? We build, operate, and finance community scale EV charging infrastructure. So what do we mean by community scale? This could be a portfolio-wide approach for REITs or multifamily buildings or developers. This could also be from a city's perspective or public agency perspective as they look at these larger goals. There will be over 50% of vehicles EVs sold across the US will be EVs by 2030. What is the city's responsibility and the commitments made to provide public charging access? So we look at programs holistically, and I'll go through that a bit more. Next slide, please. So what makes us different? What is our secret sauce? Is we really deeply care in our DNA. BlocPower and GreenWealth both are equity minded and impact focused in our mission. And we really believe EVs have the potential to change lives and transform communities. It's not just about putting a charger in the ground, but it's healthy and clean air long term. It's job creation, sustainable, long term, high paying jobs. It's bringing domestic manufacturing in. It's energy independence, economic vitality. So that to us means economic development as well as procurement with diverse businesses, and of course environmental justice. So with the Justice 40 mandates and also funding allocations out there, we have a huge opportunity in this point of history to direct those funds towards underserved communities and make sure that they're first now, not last. Next slide, please. And we really walk the walk when it comes to equity and diversity values. Both of our companies have full diverse leadership at GreenWealth. I'm proud to say we're over 80% women and 90% people of color, and we reflect the diversity of the communities that we work with, both from communities of all types as well as communities where there's the highest demand for EV need. We are certified in over 14 public agencies as the California Women, Minority, and Small Business Certified. And we bring along for the ride a coalition of nonprofits and faith-based organizations and community organizations that are in both the GreenWealth and BlocPower ecosystem. Next slide. A quick intro on our sales. Myself, founder and CEO of GreenWealth, We have Namrita Marino, who brings 22 years of experience from SoCal Edison, where she ran the Charge Ready program. So very important for the cities on the call as they think about project implementation and also utility considerations for these big programs. Alberto Lopez, our VP of Sales, who brings a wealth of knowledge, was formerly at Blink and FreeWire Technologies. And Heather Regan, our Director of Government Affairs, with a extensive public service background, being formerly from the State Department and White House, supporting on the grant side and strategies and program design. Next slide. And so what do we do? You guys have heard us say it, but equity focus, impact focus, and no upfront cost. With BlocPower financing and GreenWealth designing and implementing and building out the chargers, we're an investor, builder, and operator of light-duty charging infrastructure and focusing on drivers who need it the most. Who is that? It's where chargers don't exist, very simply put, and where the need is the greatest. These are gig drivers like Uber and Lyft drivers, where they've committed 100% EV to their fleet by 2030. This is low-income communities. These are people who rent in multifamily buildings and don't have charging because it's the hardest building segment to actually put charging in. And then it's the fact that people are waiting sometimes up to 2 hours to wait their turn in the middle of the night to charge at a DC charging station. So that's our focus. Next slide, please. And we believe we have the most intelligent way to implement charging. With our three-pronged approach, we really harness the community input when we design programs with stakeholder engagement. So that's flexibility around what are the goals for a real estate portfolio or a public agency, community engagement goals, diversity procurement goals, as well as do we want to add some incentives for people to be early adopters of EVs, and how can we keep charging rates low? We also, BlocPower is not really a topic of this particular call, but BlocPower is a national leader in workforce development. So wherever we go, we find opportunities to support existing workforce development infrastructure, as well as build upon with our experience in EV and clean energy and this type of training. We try to add value in those communities. Next slide. This is a bit of a preview of what's to come. We are co-developing a AI EV charging module with BlocPower's Block Maps, planning to launch by next year, which you guys can go look that up on BlocPower's website or reach out to Sydney for follow-up. It's digital twins of every single building in America that allows us to look from tens of thousands of buildings scale, city scale, which buildings are the best candidates for EV charging, and how are those, what incentives are there, what tax credits are there, which of those sites fall in DAC, low income, or underserved communities, and then for cities to plan, and also for us to support the underwriting of these larger programs. Next slide. And a quick overview of our owner-operator third-party ownership model. We do cover, if selected, and for the appropriate site, our team will cover electricity costs and operating fees, including O&M and asset management, reporting, and stakeholder engagement. We will assume the utilization risk of the chargers and recovery of any investment. And we will then also provide a profit share to the hosts of the charging stations. On average, it's an average of 10 years term length, with extension options and also buyout clauses, as we are very flexible with working with public agencies and their procurement requirements. I think taking a pause on this slide, where this is very relevant for us today is we've been working a lot with current awardees of the CFI federal grant funds. So where cities may have applied in the past for funds, now have the funding, but the funding only covers 80%. and they're required to put in a 20% match. We together as our team have made commitments to cover that 80% match and then do a profit share back to the community, as well as gotten involved with different community college networks or local workforce groups to really add value beyond just the building out of the charging stations. And we're not only supporting those who have already won awards, but looking at the successes there. How can we take our learnings and also help other cities pursue upcoming grant funds, which include CFI and other funding opportunities? Next slide. I think we can breeze through these. Yep. Next slide. So very proud of the partnership we have with SoCal REN, which is about a 200 public agency coalition out here in Southern California. We're currently in the implementation process of a REACH grant, which is funded by the California Energy Commission. We have a between 50 to 75% low income target. This program aims to build no cost level 2 charging in multifamily buildings. So all in all, the program funded, with help of incentives, we will be installing over $10 million of light duty charging at these multifamily buildings, serving over 40,000 households by 2026. So that's something we're very proud of, and shows our strength in being able to build coalitions and add value on top of just installing chargers. Great. This is just a quick map of where those projects are located. Next slide. And we're also very proud to be partnered together for the EV Equity Workforce Development Program in partnership with LA County. So this was a program that we co-authored and were awarded earlier from the DOE. The program sets out to set up the first workforce development training program for EV charging installers in LA through the technical colleges down here. So we have a number of amazing partners, the mayor's office in the city of LA, as well as the local agencies and councils of governments nearby. This is really, really amazing, and we anticipate the execution of this contract before the end of the year, and to take both the curriculum and the framework that's been successful here into other parts of the US through BlocPower and their workforce pipeline. I think that's it on my slides. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Ariel, for that thorough overview. And, it's clear there's so much alignment, and we're so excited about expanding this program and partnership across the country. Hanan, from the finance side, as we all know, EV charging is not new. Folks have been talking about this for a very, very, very long time. Can you share a bit about what sets our approach apart from a finance perspective that's different as compared to just, run-of-the-mill EV charging infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. BlocPower has worked really hard with GreenWealth. And BlocPower, we're glad to say that we're close to finalizing a $100 million facility to finance EV charging across the country, which would be one of the largest facilities in the country currently to do that. The way we look at it really came from our work with the low and middle income community and understanding of the incentives in the market and how do we finance deals that provide, quote unquote, traditional risk when you're looking at the market. EV charging, although it's been around for a while, when you compare it to underwriting real estate, it's a drop in the bucket. You have real estate information on deals for, hundreds of years, if not more, and massive amounts of them. The biggest risk in the current market was utilization, right? Nobody knows. Are people going to charge enough? Is it going to be good enough? Even though we're seeing studies that the adoption of EVs, and I'll let Ariel talk about that because she's the expert in that, are increasing faster than anybody expected. We're seeing people at just get in an Uber and ask the EV Uber driver about charging. You'll hear their horror story. If you want to see people get angry and get really amped up about asking about charging, right? It's an issue. The infrastructure is not there. And I think, um, us looking at that and looking at the real world needs, and understanding those and underwriting from that perspective, in addition to our ability to understand the incentive environment in the market, we were able to create a facility that focused on incentives and low utilization risk and opportunistic, um, overview, and really focusing on the low and middle income communities as a target market that supports one, equal deployment of EV charging, but also the rideshare employees that currently are the largest fleet in the world of EV cars, that has been kind of left to not have any ability to charge their cars. So really, it's an underwriting from a practical perspective that we're kind of looking at, and I think that's pretty unique in the market.
Thank you. Speaking of EV adoption, I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of folks have if they're not really close to this business like we are is like, oh, EVs are only for a certain demographic of customer, right? Ariel, I'd love to hear your perspective on this and some of
Yeah.
the work that we're doing to fight this misconception as we stand for EVs for all.
Yes. So I can talk about that from the context of GreenWealth's experience of putting chargers in the ground since before the pandemic. This was, we're based in LA. LA County and LA City are the densest EV regions in the entire country. And we saw at first EV1 version 1 was people have Teslas and they happen to be on one side of the town and they need places to charge. And so it was very densely concentrated first in these more affluent regions, multifamily and neighborhoods. As we began to develop more and more to better understand this at a national level, and EV is now significantly multiplied on the road, we learned that the biggest demographic, actually, the greatest need for chargers actually comes from those Uber and Lyft drivers. So over 2 million drivers working with a company, rideshare company, that has committed to be 100% EV by 2030. And there's this bit of a chicken and the egg, because they have the greatest need, but they also have the least amount of funds to actually build those charging stations. And Uber and Lyft drivers usually live on the outside of city centers, in rental communities where they're sort of powerless in being able to install their own charger because it's up to the landlord. And then there's other things around that, such as grid constraints that affect multifamily buildings, or particularly are biased towards lower income, underserved communities. So we see this. We started out as our thesis being, we really want to proliferate chargers for all because nobody will have the confidence to buy a full electric vehicle unless they know consistently they have a place to charge, they know where to go all the time, and it as easy as a gas station. And we recently learned that it is in these low income communities that the opportunity is the greatest, and it's the highest unmet need.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way. Let's talk about community engagement area. Like, you mentioned this in the deck, but I think it would be really helpful to understand sort of how you work with the communities that you serve and the types of programs and education that you're providing as a part of some of our work.
So I will speak to a recent trip that my colleague Alberto, who's our VP of Sales, and I took last week. I can't say the city yet, but in a very, very red state, if not one of the most reddest state, historic oil and gas state. This city had been awarded $15 million of CFI grant funding. And it is just an incredible story around equity and how they created the proposal and ultimately were funded. Um, they have a population of 80% that is non-native English speaking. They have under 1% EV penetration for this city. But overall, and there's also a history of environmental impacts to the region as well. And what we did, we just came back from the city and we spent a few days over there. We met with the electric utility, the city, and the county around their implementation of the grant. We helped them with the CFI grant. This is a very big lift, and everybody's very excited. But compliance is really important. Budgeting properly, and also finding the right private sector match funding is important to them. So over a few hours, we built that out. And as the EV expert, got them to thinking about a lot of the long-term impacts of charger ownership and how they should think about this program. And they had first started with thinking, this is so great, like so much money's coming in, why wouldn't the city own it? They then became aware that across the US, there's a lot of risk to owning charging stations. It's expensive. There is a high cost, somewhere between $800 to $1,000 all in a year to operate a level 2 charger. There's utilization risk, there's vandalism risk, and the number one thing is when chargers are down, people will complain. And nobody wants to deal with that. That's the biggest headache that we've heard from cities. And so in us kind of highlighting a lot of the case studies of our experience of working with other cities, we got them to move over to the other side where they're like, it makes sense to have an experienced operator, but we require and we need the operator to take into account our equity goals. We need the chargers at libraries. We need them in certain parts of the city where we know there's no EV drivers currently. And we slowly came to a program that they were happy with. They're also, I think, in being in this place, there's a lack of workforce there. So they know that this is funding to put in the chargers, but it's also funding to operate and maintain the chargers. They have a supplier diversity, citywide and countywide supplier diversity plan, but they're worried that there are no actual EV installers or maintenance providers in their city. So we're teaming up with their local state-run university to support the workforce development and taking a lot of the curriculum that GreenWealth has already created and will continue to create. BlocPower too, with their partnership with Goodwill and also Charger Help, has also done support in the community around training people for EV jobs. So together, how can we take those learnings and even just as value add? If we have it, we don't really charge for that support, but it's just something that's right to do. And ultimately, the community develops, and as a builder and implementer of these programs, we equally need people to work on the programs. And it's part of our values to procure from diverse companies and small businesses, which gets more difficult unless we actually get very hands-on with these communities and we start building out the roadmap of these workers to prepare for these charging stations that are going to be up and running for ultimately decades to come.
Yeah, it's such an integrated approach. And that's what is personally so exciting to me, is like, this is so much more than just project finance and installing EV chargers. It's really about how to connect all those decision points to create a sustainable infrastructure and revenue for the communities that we're serving. It's so exciting. I'm personally just like really energized about expanding this program across the country. There are some questions from the audience here that I'm going to address. One of them was, how does GreenWealth cover its costs and make money? You want to answer that, Ariel?
Yeah. So we don't own and operate every single project. We do have a way for every project to be no upfront costs, and that's the genius financing of Hanan and his team. How do we make money is development fees from the building out of the charging stations, as well as the utilization and the managing of the assets, including O&M of the chargers over time. So there is those costs, but I think both BlocPower and GreenWealth, we're in it for the long term, and we want to see good things happen. And we know that there's a reason why traditional business like big charging has not gone into these communities, is because it has not penciled. So between us, we feel a like philosophical and values imperative, and even like a spiritual imperative at a time, to really get involved here, which is why we can be more creative in finance than what we've seen with other EV companies.
Yeah, I think.
Second, oh, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
go
no,
ahead,
Hanan, go ahead.
No, if I can add just a little bit on that, I think the biggest thing is the unique combination that we have here and the alignment of the companies from a mission perspective. And as we know, I think it's a good question about how does GreenWealth make money, and in general, when we look at sustainability and impact, philanthropy only goes so far. If somebody said, I do, in Ariel even brought it up, if somebody came today and said, I'm going to donate X amount of dollars to put in X amount of chargers in the community, those chargers, once they're great, who's going to take care of them? Those chargers, once they need to upgrade, once there's an issue, who's going to be managing them? Who's going to be looking after them? So that impact that community might be a one-time community. And I'm saying philanthropy is great and is wonderful, but really, in order to create sustainable, overarching impact on communities, what is unique about our program is we developed a way that we can make that impact, leverage incentives, leverage grants, leverage community involvement into it in order to create sustainable growth and sustainable implementation of our impact. There's a difference between a, $500,000 donation or $1 million donation here and there that the local community church was able to raise to put some chargers there, and $100 million facility that we were able to bring in Wall Street capital on top of the capabilities of the current government incentives and really deploy it in a way that changes the community infrastructure completely. We had not a charger here, a charger there, but really an implementation that is for-profit implementation that continues the incentive of both the companies that are running it and the community to use it over the duration of the life of the project, which is why it's so exciting, to be able to, creatively find a way where it benefits everybody, to, go out to market in a way that is sustainable and creates real growth and provides real returns to each part of the supply chain here, in order for it to be scalable and grow across the country and across the communities.
There's a follow-up question. Oh, go ahead, Ariel.
Oh, yes. I see I see the follow-up question to clarify how you guys make money if it's no upfront cost. So there's 3 buckets. There is firstly, there's the option to do it turnkey. So if people want to build their own charging infrastructure and they want some help, and just like a developer and contractor, we can support there. So that's number 1. The number 2 is the owner operator model. Not all sites qualify. It does need to meet traditional banks' underwriting criteria, but we get very creative in leveraging incentives like utility, state, and federal grants and rebates, tax credits, as well as any other sources that we can find. If it does meet the criteria, we take the full risk, and then we take the revenues from the charging stations. So we take a portion of it. A portion goes back to the site as a just for hosting the charger. If it's not, it doesn't really fit that model. We have a third option, which is BlocPower's bread and butter, is the option to make it no upfront cost and provide financing. So this is like a monthly subscription, like an equipment lease model. And I would share with you guys the BlocPower website. It's all over their homepage. The same financing that's gone into heat pumps and solar and like city scale infrastructure. But as much as we can, we try to keep that middle model, just because we think that's having it no cost for the property is really the best for everyone. And to me is the only way to really guarantee uptime that there is a financial commitment to keep that high, almost 99% uptime.
Thank you. We got another question about hardware and software. So Ariel, I feel like this is a good one for you. Can you share more about, what kind of hardware we work with, what types of chargers we install in these programs, and more about how that works?
Yep. So we're agnostic, and we find that our real estate partners and especially our city partners like that. We're about the performance of the charger and the right technology and the right spec for each project. And when something doesn't work, it doesn't really, we pay extra diligence and attention to make sure we pick the right thing. And also if we need to replace it with the right thing. Some of our partners include ChargePoint, Tesla, who else? ABB, Flow, Autel, others. We've had a relationship with Blink before. But it really depends, and on a case by case basis. When we look at here the main metrics is the cost of the charger, the durability and proven historical performance of the company, which is very important these days. The power of the charger as it's compatible with the existing infrastructure. And I leave an asterisk at the end for innovation. So a lot of the federal grants that we've seen is very open to pilot programs and rewards more innovative solutions. So we're considering for the right applications, things like microgrids, batteries, solar. There's even this product called Volt Server that's called digital electricity. It came from the national labs and it's running lower power level 2 power through Ethernet cables. And so we see that as a way to reduce construction costs and eliminate needs for trenching. So yeah, that was a lot, but in short, we're very open on manufacturers and keeping an eye out on the new technologies.
And worth noting, our programs are primarily focused on level 2. I believe you mentioned that.
So we should, yeah. We're open to all. Historically, we have been light duty charger focused, and so that has been at least 90% plus level 2 with some level 3. There are, I think, companies out there that focus on medium heavy duty, but we're focusing on the cars that we see on the road and the fleet vehicles that exist for cities and public agencies, and those to us are light duty.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's another question here on the Ariel, but I'm going to jump in really quickly on how the cost of low-income EV drivers use the charging station. Just from I just wanted to show that like the whole concept of our level 2 chargers happening at the multifamily units provides the ability for low-income middle and low-income EV chargers to charge at a lower rate. One, they're charging at their home, right? So it's a lower rate than your public. But additionally, the cost is usually lower because when you think about it, they're charging at night usually. And where there's a lot of incentives in the market that are addressing the want of utilities to charge at night. Actually, Con Edison, for example, has a 3 cents per kilowatt per hour when we're charging at night rebate. And different type of, and they're not obviously the only utility that does that. So the whole idea of night charging and not day charging, like Ariel likes to reference it as like fleet charging, basically, because people drive during the day and then charge at night, really aligns with the ability to lower the cost directly. Um, and the whole idea of charging where they are, right, where the drivers live, also lowers the cost when you think about driving to a place and back from it. But that just wanted to comment about that question. But Ariel, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The time of use pricing and the pricing electricity cheaper at night when the cost of electricity is cheaper, it is one method. Uh, I I do want to be very real. We our partnerships with our public agency sponsors is incredibly important, and our ability to do deep work in these low income communities. We really need the support of our public agency partners. So there is, I think, we're trying to match make the funding and be as creative as we can with the program. But with traditional finance, like we still need to pay off the debt, and we're trying to create win-wins for everyone here. And so all that is to say, the environment of tax credits and finding other incentives to supplement that's important to the model. But we feel great that we're creating like brand new things. Like I'll say for LA, for example, the film studios here need charging. LA City needs more charging. Uber drivers need charging at the same time. And how can we build these Venn diagrams? And also the cities are themselves pursuing funding for charging. So how can we build these win-wins where we meet multiple community stakeholders charging at the same time, and kind of we do a spread of responsibilities, or like people kind of maybe offering whatever they can contribute, whether it is utilization. We know, we can tell you from data, you can expect this amount of utilization. Maybe utility can support an in-kind resources. Maybe there is special funding specifically to faith-based or low-income communities. Maybe there is like support from Uber. And so models such as these, where we're getting very creative, where I think with traditional business, it's been, there's a very simple formula. If we're not, capitalism is if we're not making tons of money, like it's basically a no. And that's the reason why charging is not gone to these communities, and it's been charging deserts. We're doing, I think, we're doing our best to be creative and bring all these groups to the table, from the nonprofits and the CBOs and the public agency, and then the local people, and then also the private side funder people, to see what is it that we can create that's unique here, and take advantage really of this moment in politics where we have Justice 40 and everything, and really build things that haven't existed before.
Two other questions. We have about 10 minutes left. Really appreciate the opportunity to connect directly with you all. So one, on that note, what's our plan for when the incentives run out? It's amazing that they're here now, but what's like the sort of long-term infrastructure plan when that may not be the case? That was a question from a while ago.
Yeah. So when incentives run out, the need for private capital is higher than it's ever been. And we see that at a micro level, with being in LA and working with LADWP, the largest municipal utility, is they haven't had incentives. It's been intermittent. And more than ever, we're in a different place now where let's see, like with the climate mayor's announcement, 350 cities have pledged this by 2030. There's an operational imperative. So Uber and Lyft, 100% EVs by 2030 is the operational imperative. These commitments from auto manufacturers, billions have been invested. The vehicles are hitting the streets. We need chargers. And so, in the absence of incentives, we need to bring more private capital there. But it may delay the implementation of the chargers, which is not good for anyone. It's not good for the manufacturers. It's not good for adoption. But that's how it would impact funding.
Hopefully we have a while. We'll see. We'll see
Yes.
how fast we can use and
Oh
leverage
yeah,
these
and
incentives.
IRA has also been around just the last few years. Charging incentives have been around for a really long time, and 40% of all of the EVs in the US are sold in 14 states, almost all which have their own state-led funding and also utility funding. So EV adoption is not going anywhere. It will continue to track like this, but the adoption is more likely to be concentrated in some areas rather than everybody coming up at once. And unfortunately, just being very real, in the event of not having public or federal support, this unfortunate truth is it's going to affect low income and underserved communities the most, because as I had said before, this work is largely fueled by the support of these commitments, these policy commitments, and also funding commitments from our public sector partners.
All right, changing gears slightly, we got another question. All right, going back up here. We got another question about curbside charging. Ariel, for you, would you mind sharing a little bit more about your perspective on curbside charging
Yes,
and
can
how
you
that
read
works then?
the question? I don't think I'm getting all the
Where
questions.
did it go? I lost it. One moment.
I
Ariel,
got
can
it.
you
Can you
please
please? Oh, go ahead.
share your perspective on curbside charging and how this would benefit rideshare drivers in the future? Is there a solution GreenWealth is interested in pursuing?
Yep. Uh, we've bid on curbside charging projects. We're anticipating to bid on more. The bids are of different technologies, so I think this is like a very this particular problem to solve is one that there's a lot of innovation happening in the space, but not a lot of deployment. So we'll need to really evaluate, given the project, is it right to go with a tried and true technology, or is a very exciting startup ready to like have their shot at one of these large city pilot programs. For us as our team, as we try it for the no cost model and the owner operator relationship. We really are pride ourselves on recommending tried and true technologies, and so I think, but also we want to be very innovation focused at the same time. So I think charging curbside is very interesting, because there's a I'll say in SoCal, there's a lot of dense urban environments where people really have no option to charge at home. So this is one way that the city can get involved and build out that infrastructure. The cool thing too is curbside. Sometimes it's cheaper to charge curbside and park for free than it is to actually park in some of these cities. So that'll be very interesting to see how those economics play out. Hanan, you want to add your 2 cents on curbside?
No, I think just in general, I think exactly what you said. We're open to a lot of new technologies. We're looking into them. I think we try to focus on um, optimizing risk and making sure that we don't take too many risks, whether it be technology risk, utilization risk, execution risk, maintenance risk, too many times. So if there are spaces that we can address some of the other risks, we're definitely open to, we leave ourselves open to the technology risk to make sure that we do look at new technologies and are able to, take advantage of what's coming out in the market. So it's really about weighing the pros and cons of the technology and what's the ability to implement it in a specific location.
So I'm going to read one final question here, which relates to how I think we should end the presentation today. But it says, in your project development and/or community development / workforce development, do you do any partnerships with local organizations to support the local economy, or not in the BlocPower or GreenWealth locations? Perfect, Tia.
Well, from our aspect, is 100% yes, right? At both
Yes.
of our sides,
Resounding
100%.
yes.
Resounding yes. BlocPower is actually in 40 cities. We don't focus only on our headquarters. We pride ourselves with local partnerships. This Ariel spoke about a little earlier about our workforce programs and really looking into and making sure that we engage the community everywhere we go, and make sure that it benefits the community in every part. It's literally part of the thing that brings that joins BlocPower and GreenWealth's mission statements is impact on the local community level. So we'd love to hear from your local community, participate with it, and engage with it when possible.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think the last question or thing to discuss for today would be, if folks are interested, how can they understand if their site or their city or their community is a good fit for these programs? Like, are there some general guidelines we could provide? Obviously, a more detailed conversation with folks who are interested is warranted, but in general, how do I know if my area is a good fit for this model?
I would say reach out to us sooner than later. Say, for example, the we've been working with some cities that have been preparing for CFI grant applications for years now. And we've had cities that have reached out to us in the last week to begin their application. And the one that is more likely to win the award is the one that is prepared. And so whether you're first time considering just the idea of the charging program, and we can add our 2 cents and be a sounding board, or you're preparing for an implementation, we would love to hear from you, and let you know where we can offer value as a resource amongst. There's a lot of different charging providers out there, but what we offer uniquely is the community and equity lens and impact, the diverse procurement, the private sector finance, and then the nimbleness to work with whatever manufacturer spec. We would love to be part of your toolkit in that way, and welcome a conversation.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Hanan and Ariel. This has been fantastic to talk about this in this forum. Thank you so much to the audience for joining. And if you're interested, you could just email me and I'll coordinate and we'll get everybody on a call and talk more about your projects. But we really appreciate your time. And thank you so much.
And
Yes, go for it, Ariel.
Sydney, we got another question of, what about people who are not currently located or in a BlocPower or GreenWealth HQ location?
That's what we answered, Ariel. That's what we just answered.
Oh yeah.
We're going everywhere. Like,
yeah.
Doesn't matter where you are. I would like to stay in the US. I know one of my other panelists is eager to do international projects, but all that is to say, we're not afraid of the distance, and we will come to you. And we're well equipped, both companies with installation development capabilities in 50 states.
Yes, beautiful. Well, everyone have a really wonderful rest of your day. Look at that, a minute early. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ariel. Thanks, Hanan. Bye, team.